السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله، بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الغمة وجاهد في سبيل الله حق جهاده حتى أتاه اليقين، ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. أما بعد، فإن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله، وخير الهدي هدي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير, my dear respect brothers and sisters, for joining in our weekly class, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this class, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for us to inshallah finish this month of Ramadan where we are much closer to Rabbil Alameen before we did. So brothers and sisters, inshallah, I want to congratulate all of you, and especially for our students, for the fact that they have now finished kitab al-tahara. They have finished kitab al-tahara, and this is something, mashallah, and I'm very proud of all of you. The fact that all of you have finished this book, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. And today we're going to be starting a new book, which is kitab al-salah, where we're going to be learning how to pray, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. And brothers and sisters, like I always say, even though many of us think that we know how to pray, but unfortunately a lot of Muslims don't. And I assure you that each and every lesson that you come and watch with us, that you will learn something new, something that many of us did not know. And that's the whole point of these classes, is for us to learn how to pray, how to fast, how to make wudu the correct way. And I'm sure you would learn something today. So when we start to talk about kitab al-salah, the book of Salah, the very first thing that we end up starting to talk about is what come right before Salah, which is what? Adhan. So, brothers and sisters, adhan is the call for prayer. Okay, and this is something that Prophet Muhammad told us the honor of someone calling for prayer. Prophet Muhammad said, "Al-mu'adhdhinuna atwalu an-nasi a'naqan yawm al-qiyamah." That the people who call for prayer, their necks are the longest in the hereafter. Why is that? Because, and this is kind of a prestige, because now you are calling for what? You're not calling for people to commit sin. You're not calling for people to do something that is not good. What you are calling for the best and the most important pillar in Islam, which is Salah. And that's why, because of this honorary act, because of the fact that you are doing something that is prestigious, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you a hefty reward in the hereafter, in which that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give your neck be the tallest in the hereafter. And this is something that is considered to be an honorary thing, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Now, when it comes to Salah, or when it comes to adhan, know that adhan is mandatory, brothers and sisters. Adhan is mandatory, and it was mandated on the Muslims on the second year after the Hijrah. Okay, and there is a different hadith that talks about how did it start. But the thing is, the Sahaba and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they want to call people to prayer. They wanted to call people for prayer. So some people said, well, let's call the prayer just like the Christians would, by ringing a bell. Some people said, no, let's call for the prayer just like the Jews would, in which that you would blow into a horn. But the thing is, so what happened is, one of the Sahabi, his name is Abdullah ibn Zayd, he slept, and he had a dream in which that he saw someone, okay, and in the dream he saw someone with the horn. He told him, give me that horn so I could use it and call for corporal prayer. The man told him, should I teach you something better than that? And he taught him the adhan. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, and then the rest. And then Abdullah ibn Zayd, what he said, he went to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he told him the dream. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he emphasized this, and he said This is يعني he said إن هذا رؤيا حق. This is a true dream. This is a true dream from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then he ثم علم بلالا فأذن به وهذا الأذان المعروف. Then Allah's Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught Bilal, how to make call for prayer, and then after that it became our way of calling for prayer. So this is how adhan started, from the beginning. And like I said, brothers and sisters, calling for the adhan is an honorary act. It's an honorary act, and it's something that we should be competing for. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he told us لو يعلم الناس ما في النداء والصف الأول ثم لم يجدوا إلا أن يستهموا عليه لاستهموا عليه. The Prophet ﷺ said, if the people knew the reward of calling for prayer, and people know the reward of being the very first line, the first line after the Imam, people would fight over it. People would fight because there is so much reward that comes along with doing these two things. And Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, "Al-mu'adhdhinu yughfaru lahu madda sawtih." That the person who called for prayer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would forgive him as far his voice would reach. وَأَجْرُهُ مِثْلَ أَجْرِ مَا صَلَّى مَعَهُ. Look at this beautiful reward. He said, and he shall get the reward of whomever pray for that prayer. He shall get the reward for whomever pray for that prayer. So that's why if you want to get a lot of reward, go ahead and make adhan. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, like المؤذن يغفر له مدى صوته, ويشهد له الرطب واليابس. Everything would witness for him. Everything would witness the fact that this man have called the prayer. Now let's talk about al-hukum. What is adhan is mandatory? Yes, adhan or the call for prayer is mandatory upon men. Among men who are not traveling. So two things: men who are not traveling are mandatory on them. Okay. So what does that mean? Meaning that, for instance, it's not mandatory if you are by yourself. If you are not mandatory if there is a group of women, but if you are local. So what does it mean? Men meaning that many people. That's two. That's more than one. And second, they're not traveling. Okay, and they're group, and they are men. So three things here. One, if you are not traveling. Two, you are more than one man. Three, you are a group. You're men. Then you should be fine. This is mandatory on you. So, for instance, if somebody by himself, it's sunnah. It's sunnah, so it's recommended. It's a sunnah for someone who was by himself. Okay, and also if someone, for instance, if someone is traveling, it's also a sunnah. It's not mandatory. It's mandatory on them. So again, if the three requirements: a group, not traveling, and men. Okay, and as long as this is applicable, then you're mandated for you to make adhan. Okay. Now, what are some of the conditions that is required for the adhan to be correct? So, can anybody? Is there any requirements? Yes, of course, there is requirements. Number one, the person who's calling the adhan, he has to be a Muslim, obviously. Okay, so he has to be a Muslim. Second thing, the person who's calling for prayer has to be aqil, meaning that he is rational. He's not like he's not drunk, or he's irrational or not sound. He has to be a rational individual. Okay. Also, the person who's calling for prayer have to be a man, and it's a woman cannot call for prayer, and this is the customs here. Okay, a woman cannot call for prayer because of the fact that the woman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given her a beautiful voice, and sometimes a woman can people could translate the beautiful voice of a woman in a different way. So other people start thinking of other things. Oh, mashallah, instead of thinking about this is a call for prayer, the people start thinking about, oh, how beautiful this woman's voice is. Okay. Third or fourth, there has to be a niyyah, an intention that you are calling. You're not just saying Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. It have to be the intention here for you saying these words is what the adhan. Okay, as Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Innama al-a'malu bin-niyyat." These are based on intention. Okay. The fifth condition, I want people to catch up a little bit. The fifth condition is that the prayer have to enter. The prayer time have to enter. And this is mandatory for all the prayers except Fajr. Except Fajr. Why is that? Because you could call for the Fajr time prior to its time. Like and it's very customary in many Muslim countries that you would have two adhans for Fajr. And people sometimes would call the first adhan and the second adhan for Fajr. First adhan, usually people for people like to sort of prepare for Qiyam al-Layl and etc. Okay. So it's mandatory for the time of that prayer to enter, and then after that, you're okay for you to call for prayer except for Fajr. Okay. The sixth condition, obviously, the rest of these conditions are pretty much known, but we say them for emphasis. ترتيب الكلمات, that words have to follow each other, meaning that I could say, for instance, I could not say أشهد أن محمد رسول الله before I say أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. No, I say there has to all the wording have to be in order. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة. All of them have to be in order. Okay, and this is kind of known. Okay, the seventh one, and this is unfortunately we have to say this nowadays, it have to be in Arabic. Okay, sometimes you have some people who would say, well, we live in a non-Arab land, or we live in Turkey, or we live in this and that country, then we could make adhan that is understandable. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have chose the Arabic language for it to be the language of the Quran, and therefore the same thing can be applied for the adhan. In which that we only allowed to make adhan only in Arabic, because that's what Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam have taught us to do. Okay. The eighth and the last condition for the adhan is that it has to be other than the previous one, in which that it have to be in order. There have to be the words have to follow each other. Meaning I could not say Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, and then I stop for like 20 minutes and then say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and then stop for 30 minutes. No, they have to be after each other. Al-muwala. Okay, and I think that this condition, the same thing we had when it comes to wudu. Remember that condition that the steps have to follow each other. Okay. So these are the 8 conditions for the adhan, the 8 mandatory conditions for adhan. Okay. Now this is mandatory. Remember, mandatory. Now what is things that are mustahab? It's good to have. Okay. First, the condition. So here we're talking about the condition of the person who is making the adhan. He have to be a sound individual. He have to be an adult or someone who is baligh. Okay. He has to be able to know the times of the prayer. Like he can be like ignorant about the time of the prayer, like when each and every prayer would come about. His voice have to be strong. Like imagine if someone making an adhan and he has very soft voice, and people could barely hear him. That doesn't. The whole point of the adhan is for people to hear you. So you have to have a kind of a strong voice. And also he has to have the higher tuhur. He has to be free from the higher level of najasa. Okay. He has to be free from the hadath al-akbar, meaning that he has not touched a woman, etc. But can he have not wudu? Can the mu'adhin not have wudu? Yes, he can. Yes, you can make wudu adhan while you are not having wudu. Yes, you can. But you have to be clean from the greater uncleanness, which is al-hadath al-akbar. We talked about this, and we said that al-hadath al-akbar usually apply in two conditions. For women, she has to be free from her menses, and for the man and the woman has to be, they haven't touched each other. Also, a condition that it's a likable condition that the mu'adhin have to be standing up and facing the qibla. Also, a good or recommended condition that his fingers have to be in his ears, just like the Prophet Muhammad taught us that while you're making adhan, you do this. Okay, and يجعل إصبعه في إذنيه وأن يدير وجهه على اليمين إذا قال حي على الصلاة وعلى يساره إذا قال حي على الفلاح. That he would turn his face to the right when he say حي على الصلاة, and he would turn it to the right when he say حي على الصلاة, and he would turn it to the left when he say حي على الفلاح. This is a condition, and not a condition. This is recommended for an individual to have. Okay. So, what else? So we talked about, and the last thing is that he has to be, he has to take it easy. He can't be rushing through the adhan. Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar, that does not work. That does not work. Okay. Now, let's talk about here for a little bit. What are the words of the adhan, and what are the words of the iqamah? Okay. So again, what is the difference between iqamah and adhan? Adhan is that when we say the prayer have started. Okay. What is iqamah? Iqamah is when we say the prayer have started. So the adhan tells you that now it's okay for you to pray. Okay. And the iqamah is now, oh people, gather, let's start the prayer. Okay. And usually in the masjid, we call for the adhan so people could prepare to come to the masjid. And by the time when they arrive at the masjid, we make the iqamah, the call for the prayer to start. And this is where people actually start prayer. So what are the words for adhan and the words for iqamah? The words for adhan is, all of us know this. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar 4 times. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala al-falah, hayya ala al-falah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. But that the only thing would change for Fajr, okay, as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm. You would add this phrase at the end. As-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, as-salatu khayrun min an-nawm, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Prayer is better than sleeping. Now, this is, there is some minor variations, okay, but this is the most common way that we would call for prayer. Okay. Now, when it comes to iqamah, okay, it's usually we have everything. Like a simple solution is that we have everything. So instead of saying Allahu Akbar 4 times, we say Allahu Akbar 2 times. We say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah once, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah once, hayya ala salah once, hayya ala falah once, and then after that we say qad qamat salah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. Again, you say Allahu Akbar, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah, qad qamat salah, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah. This is the way we'd call for, make the iqamah. Okay. Now, if I am listening to, I'm not the one who's making the adhan. What are some of the good things or some of the recommended things that I could do? Okay. So what are the الأشياء المستحبة لمن يسمع الأذان? That what are the recommended things that someone can do when he is listening to the adhan? Okay. The very first thing,
can't you repeat after the mu'adhin or no?
That's what I'm gonna say, inshallah. So the very first thing is that you would repeat after the mu'adhin. Okay. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إذا سمعتم النداء فقولوا مثل ما يقول المؤذن. If you heard the call for prayer, repeat just like the mu'adhin would do. Okay? And this is for most of the adhan. Okay? Except in two places. When the mu'adhin say hayya ala salah, he would say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. When he say hayya al falah, he would say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So that's the only two places. But beyond that, you could say the same thing as the mu'adhin would say. If the mu'adhin said Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar. If he said Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. But when he say hayya ala salah or hayya al falah, you will say la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Okay, so that's the very first thing you could do. Second thing that you could do is that you would say shahada. And there's a hadith that indicates that. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man qala hina yasma'u al-adhan وأنا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا غفر ما تقدم من ذنبه." So whoever says أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله رضيت بالله ربا, I am satisfied with Allah being my Lord, والإسلام دينا, and Islam being my religion, and Muhammad is my prophet. Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم said, whoever says this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would forgive all of his sins. Again, whoever say أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا ومحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم رسولا. Okay. The last thing that you could do when if you are listening to the adhan, is that you would make salah on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's why you'll see this in some of the masajid, in which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, إذا سمعتم المؤذن فقولوا مثل ما يقول. Okay, and then at the end you would say ثم سلوا لي الوسيلة, that you would ask for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam the way, in which the person would say رب هذه اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. Okay, and then you stop. Okay, so if you ask your parents, and this is very common, you could easily look at this like the hadith or the dua that you would say at the end of the adhan, but it's highly recommended that you do it, very highly recommended. Okay, because whoever says this hadith, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would intercede on his behalf in the hereafter. Look at the reward of that. Whoever say that dua, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would intercede. What does that mean? That he would ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive you in the hereafter. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمد الوسيلة والفضيلة وبعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. People sometimes add another phrase, إنك لا تخلف الميعاد. That is not correct. You stop where وبعثه مقاما الذي وعدته, and then you stop there. Also, brothers and sisters, it's very, very important that you take advantage of the time between the adhan and the iqamah, that you would make dua, because the dua between the iqamah, the adhan and the iqamah is accepted. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ad-du'a la yuraddu bayna al-adhan wal-iqamah." Fad'u. But anytime you really take advantage of it, the time between the iqamah and salah, between the adhan and iqamah, it's time for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would accept your dua. So always make dua. So this is very, very important. Now, what are the prayer? Like, so we talked about this. When are we allowed to make adhan? We're allowed to make adhan for all the prayers. For all the prayers. Okay? Except the salah for the janazah, or the salat al-witr or salat al-eidain. No, there's no adhan for these prayers. Okay. Are we allowed to have the adhan from the radio or the TV? Like, can we follow the imam from the radio or the TV? No, you can't. You can't. Okay. And last but not least, and I asked this question before, are you allowed to make adhan without wudu? What do you guys think?
Yes,
Are you?
can.
Yes, you're allowed. But you can.
Yes.
Are you? Yes, thank you. And that's about it. So this is covers everything. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We covered everything related to adhan. Everything. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So we talked about how the adhan started. We talked about the conditions of the mu'adhin, the condition of the adhan, what is recommended for the mu'adhin, what are the conditions for you to be a mu'adhin, and etc. And we talked about some of the rulings here and there, and what are the wordings of the adhan. That's very important. Now, before we end this, bi'idhnillah ta'ala, is there any questions or comments or concern? Let me check if there is any questions from the chat. Okay. So I don't see. Yeah, except for haters, unfortunately. Okay. I wish if I could answer you, Mr. Colin, but the topic of today's talk has got nothing to do with your question. But your question is very, very easily answered. And I don't want to move today's subject out of it. But I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide you. Any other questions, guys?
Is it okay to have an adhan speaker in your house?
Yes, it's okay to have an adhan speaker, but it's better. I mean, to kind of, you could utilize it for like to remind you for the prayer. Nothing wrong with that. But is it don't consider it as an actual adhan. Okay, don't consider it as an actual adhan. Like if it's better if there is a jama'ah that you still make the adhan. Okay, and by the way, you still recommended that you do the same thing that we asked to do when we're hearing the adhan. So, like for instance, can you repeat after the speaker? Yes, you can. Can you say the dua at the end of the adhan? Yes, you can. Okay, but don't consider it as an actual adhan, because it's an app, or it's something that is installed in a program. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Khair, inshallah. Jazakum Allah khair, brothers and sisters, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide all of us. And inshallah, I'll see you guys bidnillah ta'ala next week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.